students, today we are going to discuss about human brain. We have already discussed few things, but today we'll be discussing specially meninges and also about cerebrospinal fluid. You already know, see here in your module, first paragraph they have given in human brain. These all are basic things which you already know, right? Here only in last part they have given about cranial box, right? Cranial box means they are talking about the skull, right, and the bones. So cranial box, in that you will have 8 bones. Which kind of 8 bones? First you would find that there is a frontal bone. Frontal bone means over here, if you talk about this part, okay, frontal means this part we are talking about. So this is going to be only one bone, right? So frontal bone is going to be one. When we talk about parietal bone, okay, so parietal bone is going to have parietal lobe of the brain inside. So parietal bone is going to be 2, okay, it means this part. So both the sides it will have one, okay, one on each side, that is called as parietal lobe. So it is going to be 2, okay. So frontal is 1, okay, parietal becomes 2. Then when we talk about temporal lobe, temporal means the bone which is near to your ear. When you touch it, no, so near to ear you will have bone on both the side, that is called as temporal bone. It is also going to be 2, right? So how many? 2, 2, 4 and 5. More 3 bones are going to be there. One is going to be occipital bone, which is at the back side of your skull, which is called as occipital. Occipital is going to be 1. When we talk about ethmoid bone and sphenoid bone, right? So it is going to be present, ethmoid and sphenoid are going to be somewhere present in front like this. So they both are going to be 1, 1. So total it comes to be 8 bones. This in detail we will study about all the bones in skeletal system. Right now you don't have to worry that much about bones. Okay, so let's come to meninges. Meninges are nothing but membrane which is going to cover the brain, right? It has basically 3 layers, okay. Which 3 layers? There is meningeal layers. Outermost is called as dura mater, middle is called as arachnoid, innermost is called as pia mater. Okay, so we are going to study in detail about each. So outermost is dura mater. Outermost, which is thick, strong and elastic layer. See, if it is not elastic, no, there is possibility that what will happen? It can break. If there is any friction, there is any pressure, it can break. So it has to be elastic. It has to be strong and thick because it is outermost layer. Okay. At several places it forms cranial venous system. It means it is going to continue as veins. It is going to form a lining which is made up of endothelial cells and it will form veins. Veins means which type of blood is it going to carry? Obviously it is going to carry deoxygenated blood, right? So it is going to form venous sinuses containing blood. Now the middle layer which you say is in the meninges, it is arachnoid membrane, and as it is in middle, it doesn't have to be thick, it doesn't have to be that strong, so it is delicate and found only in mammals. So arachnoid is a mammalian character, right? At several places it is going to form villi. Why villi is there? Because it will increase the surface area. If surface area is increased, it will absorb more amount of cerebrospinal fluid, and you know that cerebrospinal fluid is very, very important. It provides buoyancy, it provides protection from shock and all. So here what you will call this? You will call it as arachnoid villi. Okay, this is called as arachnoid villi. And now the space between this dura mater and arachnoid is called as subdural space. Okay, in subdural space what is going to be filled? It is filled with serous fluid. What is serous fluid? Serous fluid, see, it is not only present in the brain, it is present in many organs. For example, near heart also. So what is serous fluid? It is secreted by serous membrane, and what is the function? It acts as a lubricant. Okay? It acts as a lubricant against organ and body wall. It means that organ should not directly touch the body wall. That is why there is a serous fluid which is going to protect the friction, which is going to protect them from any friction. The innermost layer is called as pia mater. Okay, what is pia mater? Innermost, it is transparent and it is firmly attached to brain, because see, pia mater is innermost structure, right? So it has to directly attach to brain. So here you can see cerebral cortex, it is attached to cerebral cortex. At some places it merges deeply into sulci of brain. See, as pia mater is directly connected to cerebral cortex, at some places you can see it is attached to sulci. What is sulci of the brain? It means we are talking about grooves. We know that when we talk about brain, cerebral cortex, it has got grooves and ridges, right? Grooves and ridges. So ridges are called as gyri, okay, and sulci is the groove. It means if we talk about like this, right? So this is the ridge, okay, and this depression we call, this is a sulci, okay. Now we are talking about sulci, okay. So sulci, at some places it merges deeply into sulci and it forms a structure which is called as stela chondria. What is stela chondria? You can write it. It gives rise to choroid plexus. Fine. Choroid plexus is a structure which is produced or which is formed with the help of pia mater of the meninges. On choroid plexus is going to help in formation of production of cerebrospinal fluid, right? So cerebrospinal fluid. Now space between the arachnoid and pia mater, it means this part, okay, it is going to be filled with cerebrospinal fluid, and this space is called as subarachnoid space, okay. So these two spaces you need to remember. This is the space which is present between dura mater and arachnoid, and this is called as subdural space. It is filled with serous fluid. Fine. Now the space between arachnoid and the innermost layer, that is pia mater, it is filled with cavity. There is a cavity, there is a space between them, it is called as subarachnoid space, and it is filled with cerebrospinal fluid, right? Cerebrospinal fluid. So this you need to remember. So this was all about meningeal layer of the brain. Now we'll talk about cerebrospinal fluid, right? Cerebrospinal fluid is a transparent, okay, it is alkaline in nature, and it is, where is it present? It is present in various parts of brains. Subarachnoid right now we saw, okay, and also in spinal. We'll see spinal cord later. Right now we are discussing about brain, so let's focus on it. Right now, cerebrospinal fluid is formed by choroid plexus, which we already saw. Choroid plexus was produced by pia mater, which was emerging into sulci and it was forming telochondria, right? And it is found in the ventricles of brain. Now what is the function of CSF? It acts as a shock absorbing medium. It means when you are walking, when you are running or doing any exercise, there should not be any damage to the brain, right? So it protects from shock and also works as a cushion. Also it provides buoyancy to the brain. See, as we know that brain is floating in a fluid called as cerebrospinal fluid, right? So it has to float, it should not sink. That is why this cerebrospinal fluid is there, right? So that we don't feel the heaviness of the brain. We know that our brain is approx 1.5 kg. We don't feel that we are carrying such heavy load on our head. Why? That is because of cerebrospinal fluid. You can see over here that average, if we talk about weight of brain, 1.4 kg, but because of cerebrospinal fluid we feel it around to 1.18 kg. This much low we feel, right? So let's start with brain now. You know that brain is divided into three parts. First is called as forebrain, right? Next is midbrain, okay. Third one is hindbrain, okay. So we'll discuss one by one. First, when we talk about forebrain, forebrain has three things. Which three things? First is cerebrum, okay. Second part is diencephalon, okay. Third part is olfactory lobe, okay. So cerebrum, when we discuss, it is the largest part of the brain, you can say the majority part, you can see this whole thing, this is called as cerebrum. Okay, then when we talk about diencephalon, diencephalon has three areas, three parts, you can say three parts. First is epithalamus, okay, second is thalamus, and third is hypothalamus. We will discuss each in detail. These three things together is called as diencephalon. See here, they have already written. Third part is olfactory lobe. It means what? It is responsible for regulation of your sense of smell, right? So we'll discuss one by one. Let's first discuss about cerebrum. Okay, it is the most, it is, you can say that, most developed part of human. Okay, here when you talk about various parts, okay, let's first discuss the parts as and when we'll come to diagram when it is needed. Okay, cerebrum consists of two hemispheres. Suppose when we talk, so this and this, these are the two hemispheres, like, okay, and these two hemispheres are connected with the help of what? A thick nerve fiber is present in between them. This is called as corpus callosum. Okay, both are connected, right? So let's read what they are saying. Cerebral consists of two hemispheres. Dorsal surface, a longitudinal groove is present between them. It is called as median fissure. It means from the center part there is a groove, there is a depression which is dividing them together. We call it as median fissure. Both the cerebral hemispheres are connected with each other by a wide thick nerve. This is called as corpus callosum. Just now we saw it. Okay, so the groove is called as, okay, longitudinal groove means a depression, which is called as median fissure, and there is a wide curved thick nerve fiber that is called as corpus callosum. Corpus callosum is again mammalian character, and it is the longest, you can say, the depression or the division which you can say which is present in brain. Okay, now each cerebral hemisphere, see this is very important. When we talk about cerebral hemisphere, how many we have? We have two cerebral hemispheres. We are talking about each cerebral hemisphere. It means when we discuss about all these, so one is given, but they are going to be present in pairs, right? So we are talking about one. Anterior, see, four lobes: anterior, middle, posterior, and lateral, right? So when you look at brain, okay, so the front part, the anterior part, it is going to be called as frontal lobe, right? So anterior part is going to be called as frontal lobe. Okay, the middle part, okay, you imagine that you are looking at brain from front, which like from you are standing in front of a person and you are looking at brain. So anterior is frontal, middle one is called as parietal. It is same like when we studied about cranial bones, right? So middle one is called as parietal. We know that parietal bone is going to be there. How many? Two parietal bones are there, right? So one at each. Okay, please remember that we are talking about frontal bone or frontal lobe. There should not be any confusion. Frontal lobe is separated by a central sulcus or Rolandric sulcus. Now see, what we are talking about, frontal lobe. With what? Frontal lobe is, it means when we talk about this. So when frontal lobe is separated, wait, I'll show you one diagram. Okay, see here in this. When we talk about this part, okay, see here, this part, okay, see here, this is central sulcus. So frontal lobe is separated from parietal lobe with the help of a sulcus, this part. Okay, so this we are talking about. Now what they are saying next, let's come back. See here what we are talking now. Now the posterior lobe is called as occipital lobe. We already know occipital bone or occipital lobe. It is separated from parietal lobe by a sulcus called as parieto-occipital lobe. Now see how is parietal occipital lobe. Okay, here it is. Okay, this is the parietal occipital lobe. This part you can see. Okay, so see, this diagram is not given in your book, but still you need to understand parieto-occipital. This is parietal, this is occipital. Fine, parieto-occipital lobe. So same way there are sulcus means nothing but the division which you can see. The lateral one is called as temporal lobe and separated from frontal lobe and parietal lobe by incomplete sulcus, and that is called as lateral sulcus. You can see over here, this is lateral sulcus or fissure, whatever you say, sulcus or fissure. Okay. Now what we are discussing is the cerebral cortex. Okay, the cerebral cortex referred to as gray matter due to grayish appearance. You know that myelinated and non-myelinated nerve cells are there. In myelinated, myelin sheath is present which gives white appearance. So wherever non-myelinated nerve cells are present, we call it as gray matter, right? So that gray matter is going to be called as neopallium or pallium, we can say. Now when we talk about cerebral cortex, there are so many areas which are present. First one is called as sensory area, motor area, association area. Okay, so sensory area is what? It is going to collect information from all the sensory organs and then it is going to be coming here. Motor area means whatever the, suppose you are touching something, you are getting the signal into the sensory area. Whatever message has to be given to the organs of the body, that is going to go through motor area. Okay, and it is going to have specific areas, suppose Broca area. Fine. So Broca area is only responsible for speech and tongue. Like few people have problem of stammering, so their Broca area is either not developed properly or there is some issue with that. Okay, motor area for voluntary movement, mostly limb muscles. Okay, message would be given through motor area only. Now association area, see this area is neither completely sensory nor motor. Intersensory association is going to be there. It means whenever any signal is going to come, okay, so what will happen, from sense organ signal has come, okay, to the sensory area. Now whatever signal has come, there is need to be processing. So processing is going to be done by intersensory association. Proper interpretation has to be done, that what message has come, from where it has come, what action you have to take for that message or impulse. Then memory center also, you know that there are centers of memory, okay, which is located in cerebrum. There are two centers, one is short term memory, one is for long term memory. Short term to long term memory is done by hypothalamus, right? Now communication, okay, the communication is also controlled by this part only. Function of cerebrum, there are so many functions, this you need to remember. Okay, first is conscious senses. It means when you are taking any decision in your full consciousness, that is done by cerebrum. Willpower, even voluntary movement, even knowledge about something, because all the memory centers are located over here, right? So different sense organs send impulses here, and this part of the brain, this part means we are talking about cerebrum, it is going to analyze and coordinate the impulses. Okay, everything is going to be done by cerebrum and then it is going to be transferred to various organs. Okay, so here we are completing cerebrum. In next lecture we will be discussing about diencephalon and olfactory lobe. If there's any problem, please message to me. We'll discuss whatever is the issue. Okay.